Welcome to day 17 of the challenge. Today's practice is called Internal Rotation Nation with Rocket. And we'll be using a band and a block for this practice. The band is on the heavier side. Maybe you'll have your medium, but heavy, extra heavy can be really challenging. But in the yoga practice, we don't necessarily take a lot of time to focus on internal rotation. And so if you've ever been like me and have felt your hips almost feel like they're jutting out to the side, right? So a lot of external rotation sometimes doesn't make the hip joint feel very stable. And the muscles that contribute to internal rotation, your gluteus medius and minimus, the TFL, right? Those are the stabilizers of your pelvis. And so if you do this internal rotation work, you might feel this difference where it almost feels like your pelvis is sitting more on top of your femurs, and that's really supporting your torso, which I think is really cool. But you see for yourself, let me know. Okay, so you're gonna grab your block, grab your band, and come on down onto your back. So you're gonna take your band, bring it right over the tops of the feet so that the band is going over the outer borders of your feet. Okay, then you're gonna take that block, wedge the block between the inner thighs, and you're gonna make this reverse tabletop for yourself. So you'll bend your knees to about a 90-degree angle, right? Find that your knees are just about right over your hips in that ballpark, okay? And now squeeze your block and press your feet just a little bit out into the bands. And notice if you feel some activity happening in the outer hips, okay? And then release that feeling, make any adjustments, right? So if you feel like there's any sort of like pinching in the front of the hip, you might take the legs actually further away, maybe bend the knees more, try again. But you're not using a lot of effort right now, just a little press. Okay, and then release, and then if you need to make more adjustments, go ahead and do that. Okay, so you're gonna keep your right leg still. Inner thighs are hugging into that block the entire time. Right leg is still. Imagine you're pushing your right foot into a wall in front of you. And then your left thigh is gonna turn inward. And as that left thigh turns inward, try not to take the legs along for the ride. Okay, that right foot is pushing forward, left thigh is turning inward, outer edge of your foot pushes into the band. It's a lot of effort for something that definitely didn't seem like this much effort. Okay, and then return that left leg back through center. Keep tension on the band though. And then you do the same thing. Now left foot's gonna press forward. Take your right foot out to the side, but don't think about just the foot going out to the side. Rotate your right thigh inward and then back. And then we're gonna alternate left and right. So left leg goes back through center, hug the block. Turn the right thigh inward. Try not to drag the left leg over to the right. Back through center. And do that again. Okay, a few more times each side. You pause, so it's not just in and out, but pause. And back through center. Rotate. Back to center. And then lower both feet, rest. Okay? Check in, feel. And now, do you feel the majority of the work in the hips, particularly the outer hips, right? That glute med, glute minimus region, close to the hip joint, right? If you squeeze your buttocks, right? Squeeze your buttocks, hold your block, and let the legs fall out to the side, right? That's gluteus maximus. And it almost feels like when you engage your gluteus maximus, it's an external rotator and a hip extensor, it feels further away from the hip joint, right? And then the work that we were doing, bring the block in, but don't squeeze the legs as much. Okay, now get that feeling of using those internal rotators. Doesn't it feel like that engagement comes closer to the hip joint? Lightly hold the block, squeeze the buttocks, and then lightly grip the block, let go, internally rotate, and release. So it's a nice comparison. Usually when we work with the muscles, we don't really say like, engage your glutes and then make something happen, and then the internal rotators and make something happen. These processes happen naturally, but when we just want to have an idea of how that musculature works upon our skeleton, and in terms of proximity, whether it's closer to the joint or further away from the joint, sometimes these exercises and awareness can really help to cultivate that feeling. Okay, so we're going to do it again, but if you felt like the majority of your work was in your back, right, you want to send that activity lower down into the hip region. Okay, lift the feet up, grab your block. We're going to do singles and then both at the same time. So if you felt more in your back, right, let the lower back drop down into the floor. Okay, let the arms be relaxed. They don't have to work right now. Find that tabletop position that worked for you. And then keep the right foot pushing forward. Left foot reaches out to the left. Left thigh internally rotates. If you notice your belly pressing up towards the ceiling, let it drop back down and root that feeling back into the left outer hip. And then come back through center. Same thing. Drop the belly down. Internally rotate the right leg. Good. Come back to center. And now squeeze the block. Both feet are going to push out to the side. Both femurs internally rotate. And then back through center. And then again, internally rotate. And through center. And one more time. Press out. Spin the inner thighs inward. And then release down. Remove that block. That's over. Okay. You're going to slip your feet through your band. Roll over onto your belly. Okay. So from your belly, make a little pillow with your forearms. Reach back through your big toes and feel the band. You might press out a couple of times just to feel sort of this buoyancy of the band. And then on your inhalation, press out into the band. Lift the thighs up. And then see if you can get a little bit of that internal rotation happening and what that's like. Is there any part of the hips that feel more spacious or more integrated? And then release. And then you'll do it again. Inhale, lift just the legs up. And then think about pushing out against the band, turning the inner thighs up, and then releasing down. Now we're going to do a little bit of the opposite. So you're going to lift the legs up, but this time turn your toes out and press out against the band. Can you feel the gluteus maximus? Right? Doesn't that feel different? And then release that feeling and release the legs. Okay, back to internal rotation. Lift the legs up, press the outer ankles into the band, internally rotate, and then release. Let's do the opposite. Turn the legs out, press the ankles, the front of the ankles into the band, lift the legs up, and back down. And then we internally rotate, outer ankles press into the band, lift the legs. See if there's any more internal rotation there and how that feels at the hip joint. Can you feel your hamstrings, the backs of the legs firing a little bit more? Okay, and then release. Okay, and then you're going to come into Shalabhasana. So you take your hands, bring them down along the sides of the body. Now you might not completely internally rotate or externally rotate. It might be somewhere in between. But using the tools of today's practice, experiment and explore. So you inhale, lift your arms, lift your legs, head and chest. Press out against the band. See what you naturally do, right? Maybe there's more lift when you turn the legs out, right? I find that there's a little more support when you internally rotate, more hamstring action. And then on an exhalation, lower back down. Do that one more time. Inhale, rise up. Explore. Press into the band. And then back down. Good. Take your hands underneath your shoulders. Press the tops of your feet down into the floor. Press your ankles out into the band, but not so much that the outer ankles bow out. And inhale into a low cobra, maybe into a higher cobra or into upward facing dog. Keep some tension on the band. And then drop the knees, press back into a tabletop, make any adjustments that you need. Okay, from here you're gonna wiggle that band back down to the outer edges of your feet. Take your block, place your block between the inner thighs. Same deal as before. Press the feet out into the band. Press both of them towards the outer edges of the mat. And then release. The feet can be up, okay? Or feet can slide, the tops of the feet can slide along the mat. And then back. Okay, I'll do that one more time. Slide out. And back in. Now you are going to lift the knees. Keep your left foot steady. Can you bring just the right foot out? Resist with the left foot. Press your left foot towards the outer edge of the left mat, but without turning the thigh inward. And then right leg back through center. Keep the right leg steady. Pull the left foot out to the left. And back through center. And then right foot. And center. Left foot. And center. Good. And then release your block. Okay, move that aside. And now come back into tabletop, but this time we're going to come into a little bit more of a virasana. So the feet can lift or the toes will drag to the outsides of the mat. Okay, press out so both legs are internally rotating. Then you walk your hands back into a virasana. Right? And you can take it to where you want to take it. You can sit completely upright. Okay? Your hands might be on the ground as you settle back. And then you'll walk back forward. Bring the feet back to neutral. And you'll do it again. So we see this, right? But this is more of these passive. We're trying to make it a little more active. Feet lift up. Feet swing away from each other. So very active here. And then feel the difference, right? As the feet land, they kind of relax into the ground, and then that sensation of the outer hip, it releases, right? There's no need for that muscular engagement anymore. And then upright. And then back forward. I'll do that one more time. Lift the feet. Active internal rotation. Okay, notice when that active internal rotation becomes passive. Good. All right. So that was our internal rotation work for today. So if you have any questions, let me know. But notice when you get up to walk, when you stand, how do you feel? How do your hips feel integrated, the musculature around that lateral hip? Do you feel more stable, maybe less stable? Does it feel different? And if it feels different, is it different for the good for you or different for not so good, right? And so those are really those questions that we want to ask ourselves when we're doing this sort of strengthening work. Also to note, if you did like it, you don't need to do it every day and you don't need to do it for an hour, right? Just a couple, right? We can add them into our practice. You can add into a practice that nobody's watching. It's great, okay? So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again for the next one.